we are going to discuss in our third session of history about the archaeological sources of Vedic period. As you see here, these two are the archaeological sources, which are the iron and pottery. Iron and pottery are the two most important archaeological sources. Let's see iron. Iron is discovered as the most important stage of human history. Its most important iron as a metal discovered the discovery of iron as a most important stage of human history. In India, the Iron Age actually began in 1000 BC. How of the initial stage of discovering iron? Iron was a harder metal than copper and bronze. So iron was harder than any other metal which was used that time as metal, copper and bronze. It was the metals used by the early humans who settled in India. But gradually they learn how to make and use more harder weapons that learn led them to the discovery of iron. So iron was harder metal than any other metal, and it was cheap and available in plenty. They have increased the use of iron as it was available and also it was cheap. So man could use iron to make livelihoods. It was used in following areas. The most important uses of iron were in the Vedic period. First one, agriculture. For the purpose of agriculture, they use iron. How they have used? Discovery of iron and its use in agriculture gave rise to economic development. Iron became most important part for the economic development of the Aryans. The discovery of iron helped the people to live by increasing or making economic development. Iron was used to make axes, most important weapon to cut the woods. Iron was used to make axes which help them to clear forest and cultivate the lands. That is another use of cotton. Iron. Iron was used to make axes which helped them to clear forest and cultivate the lands. They also made iron plough heads, sickles and hoes. These are another uses of iron. And next one, occupation. The use of iron gave the Aryans rise to new trades like weaving, spinning, carpentry, tanning and tool making. These are another uses of iron, the use of metal iron. It helped them to make weaving, spinning, carpentry, tanning and tool making. Such other way it is used them for in several ways, and even defense. The discovery of iron helped them in defense. Iron was used to make weapons like swords. You know that the weapon that we use especially in the war time. Swords, armors, shields and slings. These are another uses of the discovery of iron. Which are the three different ways? The iron used them for agriculture, occupation and defense. Now, pottery. Next one, pottery. Another archaeological sources of Vedic period is pottery. Pottery forms in an important source of information. Pottery forms and gives an important source of information. There were two different type of pottery were discovered and different sites. There were, you have to keep in your mind, there were two types of pottery discovered, which are the graveware and painted graveware. These two were the two different type of pottery: graveware, which is also known as GW, and painted graveware, which is also known as PGW. These two are the most important pottery. Let's see which are the features of this both. PGW, that is painted graveware, is very fine, smooth and even colored pottery. That's about the feature of PGW. It very fine, smooth and even colored pottery. And it was made of high quality clay. Clay means that the particular mud, type of mud that we used to bake the pots. Clay with geometric patterns painted on it in black. In your textbook there is a picture of painted graveware, PGW, that you can see by understanding. And few had floral patterns on it. Pottery includes open mouth bowls and dishes that we are using regularly for the uh, daily uses. Then the first point, other later a new type of pottery called northern black polish ware was seen. Another, apart from all these two, graveware and painted graveware, they also have pottery called northern black polish ware, NBPW, was seen. It was glossy and shining. It was used by ruling class. This is another particular type of pottery that is discovered later, but it was used among the ruling class, the priest, the ruling working class in the Vedic society. That's about the two different sources of Vedic literature. Which are the two different sources? Literary sources and archaeological sources. Epics and Vedas were the literary sources. Pottery and iron were the archaeological sources. Now here you see a comparative study of early and later Vedic society. The differences between the life of early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Let's make it very briefly understand. Joint family system was not there. In the early Vedic period, there were no any joint family system, and women enjoyed equal status. Let's see the comparison. In the early period, there were no joint families, but in the later Vedic period, there was joint family system, and women had good role in the early period, but in the later Vedic period, the status of women were reduced, and there was a rigid caste system was not there in the early Vedic society. There was not a rigid caste system available, but in the later Vedic period there was a rigid caste system. And Gurukul system of education was seen. Gurukul system, that means the students were living with the teacher in a isolated place and getting education. This is the Gurukul system. The students will live with the guru or the teacher and stay with him, and the students will help the teacher in the household activities. They will live there, they will study from there, and they will come back to their home. That means they will leave their home and live with the teachers. That is the Gurukul system. It was there in the early Vedic period, but in the later Vedic period, the Gurukul system of education was further continued and enlarged. The system became something more smooth and encouraged in the later Vedic period. That's about the most important difference between early Vedic society and later Vedic society. Then again, the combined study of economy. The early Vedic period, domestication of animals, taming animals were the primary occupation, but in the later Vedic period, what was agriculture was the primary occupation. and cattle was the most important source of wealth in the early Vedic period, but land was the most important source of wealth in the later Vedic period. And many were engaged in trade and commerce, but in the later Vedic period they used with coins and better transport facilities. They used transport facilities led to the growth of trade and commerce. And the most important occupations in the early Vedic period: weaving, carpentry, pottery, craft in gold and silver. But in the later Vedic period, besides other occupations, some new occupations include physicians, musicians, etc. Hence, my dear students, these are about the most important difference between the two periods, early Vedic and later Vedic period. There are some more parts that is remaining in the second lesson, that all we will discuss in the very next new session. By that time, please watch and go through the videos again and again and try to get the subject matter from the video. Thank you.